CEO catches black waitress using his computer, then sees code that leaves him speechless. What if the quiet waitress you'd never paid much attention to held the key to securing the future of your entire empire? His days were filled with meetings, strategies, and constant decisions. He trusted his systems and his staff implicitly. Each person was chosen with care, each system was designed to be the best. His own personal computer, however, was a different story. It wasn't just another corporate device. It was the centerpiece of his entire operation, his gateway to the entire company's security and data. It was flawless, locked down tighter than Fort Knox. But on this evening, after an exhausting day of meetings, something felt off. James noticed the faint flickering lights from his desk as he walked through the door. His pulse quickened. He knew he had powered everything down before leaving for the evening. But there it was again, the soft glow from his desk, and the unmistakable sound of keys tapping. He entered his office slowly, his eyes scanning the room. What he saw stopped him cold, a woman sitting at his desk, typing away at his computer. She was hunched over the keyboard, her hands moving with impressive speed and precision. But what startled him even more was the fact that she wasn't just anyone from his inner circle of trusted employees. It was Tasha, the quiet waitress from the cafeteria, the woman he had barely acknowledged during the countless times she'd served him coffee and lunch. James froze, his thoughts racing as he tried to process what he was seeing. Tasha. Here. In his office? On his computer? His mind raced with questions. How did she get in? What was she doing here? Was she a threat to his carefully crafted empire? Or had she discovered a weakness in his supposedly impenetrable security? Can I help you? James finally asked, his voice calm but edged with suspicion. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but this was far from a situation he could ignore. The idea that anyone, would have access to his system without permission sent a jolt through him. Tasha turned her head, clearly startled by his entrance. For a brief moment, her face was full of panic, but it quickly melted into a composed expression. She stood up slowly, as if unsure of what to say. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, she said, her voice steady, though her eyes betrayed a hint of nervousness. I just needed to get something done, and your system was the only one that could access the files. James stared at her, trying to process the words. This wasn't adding up. Why are you on my computer? He asked again, his voice low but now filled with confusion and an edge of frustration. You've been here for years, but I never knew you had the clearance to access this system. Tasha hesitated for a long moment. Her gaze flickered back to the computer screen before meeting his eyes. I used to work in cybersecurity, Mr. Carter, she said, her voice gaining strength. I know how to break into systems, how to patch up weaknesses. I noticed some things on the network, and I thought I could help. James felt the blood drain from his face. Tasha, the woman who had been serving him coffee and food for years, wasn't just any employee. She was a former cybersecurity expert, and she had been sitting in his office, accessing his system, undetected. You used to work in cybersecurity? James repeated, disbelief flooding his senses. And you've been working here in the cafeteria all this time? Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Tasha looked away briefly, avoiding his gaze. She shifted uncomfortably, her fingers tapping nervously on the desk as she spoke. I wanted a change, Mr. Carter. I didn't want the spotlight. I just wanted a simpler life. But I couldn't ignore the flaws in your system once I noticed them. James could hardly process what he was hearing. This was more than a coincidence. Tasha wasn't just someone who had stumbled into his office by mistake. She was a skilled hacker who had worked in the same field he dominated, only she had chosen a quiet life, away from the chaos of high-profile jobs. She had the skills to completely change the trajectory of his company, yet he had never noticed. What kind of flaws? James asked, his voice filled with a growing sense of urgency. His mind was still trying to catch up with this revelation. He had always prided himself on his company's unbreakable security system, and yet here was Tasha, a former cybersecurity expert, pointing out flaws he didn't even know existed. Tasha's eyes flickered over the screen, and she slowly began typing again, her fingers moving fluidly across the keys. The encryption is good, but there are backdoors. Small ones, but they're enough. If someone really wanted to, they could breach your system. James stepped closer to the desk, looking at the screen with a new sense of urgency. The code was unlike anything he had seen before. It was more than just lines of text. It was a blueprint for understanding and manipulating his entire system. The intricacy of it left him in awe. "You've built this?" he asked, his voice a whisper of disbelief. Tasha nodded, her expression calm but serious. "I've patched up some of the system's vulnerabilities, but your team should take a look at these before someone else does." James took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He had spent his entire career building a reputation for cybersecurity expertise. And yet, here was Tasha, a woman who had worked as a waitress in his company, telling him that his system wasn't as secure as he thought. The irony wasn't lost on him. This woman, this humble, unassuming woman, was the one who had discovered the weaknesses in his fortress. "Where did you learn all this?" James asked, the disbelief still evident in his voice. He was having trouble reconciling this image of Tasha, the woman who served meals with a smile, with the one sitting in front of him, typing out complicated code that could change everything. Tasha shrugged slightly. "Like I said, I used to work in cybersecurity. But that life was too demanding, too chaotic for me. I wanted something different." James paused. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the weight of his realization. Tasha had just shown him something that could change his entire company. She wasn't just any waitress, she was a prodigy who had chosen a quieter life, away from the spotlight. And now, here she was, sitting in his office, ready to help him fix the very system he had spent years perfecting. "I need your help," James said finally, the words coming out before he even realized he had made the decision. "This company needs someone like you. I need you to help me build a stronger, more secure future." Tasha looked up at him, her eyes cautious but intrigued. "I'm not interested in being in the spotlight, Mr. Carter. I just want to do the work, no titles, no drama." James smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "I don't need you in the spotlight, Tasha. I need your skills. I need someone like you to help me make this company bulletproof." Tasha considered his offer for a long moment. The silence in the room seemed to stretch on forever. She had spent years running away from the world she once knew, but now, it was calling her back. She had the skills to shape the future of Cybernet, but was she ready to dive back into a world she had left behind? Finally, she nodded. "All right," she said, her voice steady. "But, on my terms." James felt a surge of excitement. He knew this partnership could be groundbreaking, not just for his company but for his own growth as a leader. What had started as an accidental meeting, a simple encounter, had just turned into a partnership that would change the future of cybersecurity, and maybe even James himself. Days passed after Tasha's unexpected visit to James's office. The atmosphere at Cybernet had shifted, but no one knew why. James had already begun working on a new direction for the company, one that would involve Tasha, the woman who had been part of the company for years but whom no one had ever really seen or noticed. She was just another employee working behind the scenes, serving lunch and coffee, and yet she was the one who had the power to change everything. James couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. He had never met anyone like Tasha before. She wasn't looking for recognition or accolades, she just wanted to make a difference. Her humility was something he hadn't encountered in his high-powered world, and it left a deep impression on him. He had spent so many years working in the spotlight, always chasing the next big deal, the next big breakthrough, but Tasha had shown him that true talent didn't need the spotlight to shine. He found himself pacing around his office late one evening, thinking about how he could convince her to join his team. His own pride had always been tied to the company's success, but now, he realized that he needed more than just technical expertise. He needed someone who could see beyond the business, someone who understood what mattered in life, and what really made a company great. Tasha had been right. There were flaws in his system. He had spent years building an empire, but he had never truly understood the inner workings of the company, nor had he paid attention to the ones who truly made it tick. He had built walls around his world, but Tasha had opened the door to something he never knew existed. "James, I think you've made a mistake," his head of security, John, said one afternoon as they sat in the conference room reviewing a new security protocol. James raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "The last few weeks have been odd," John continued. "Ever since you took that meeting with Tasha, things have been different. People are noticing that you're letting go of the reins a bit more than usual. You're trusting more people. You're changing, James." James couldn't help but laugh. "I'm not changing. I'm just realizing what matters. For once, I'm focusing on something bigger than just the next contract." John frowned. "But is that really what Cybernet needs right now? We've always been about power, control, and dominance. Letting go doesn't fit with that narrative." "I don't want to be that kind of leader anymore," James replied. "I'm done chasing power for power's sake." John's eyes widened. "Then why bring Tasha into the fold? She's never been involved in the company like that before." "Exactly," James said, his voice filled with conviction. "She has the kind of insight we need. She's a breath of fresh air in a world that's been suffocating on its own success." John didn't say anything for a moment, but he knew better than to argue with James when he was this determined. He simply nodded, and they moved on with the meeting. But James couldn't shake the feeling that he had found something, or rather, someone, that could change everything. Tasha's life had been simple, quiet, and full of reflection since she had stepped away from her cybersecurity career. After years of working in high-pressure environments, she had walked away from the spotlight and found solace in the simplicity of a humble life. She enjoyed working at Cybernet's cafeteria, interacting with the employees who came in for meals, and simply being part of something without the weight of expectations. But now, after her conversation with James, everything had shifted. His offer to join his team had come as a surprise, but it also felt like the right thing to do. Tasha had always known she had more to offer the world, but she had kept it buried beneath layers of insecurity and fear of failure. Now, James was offering her the chance to shine, not as a performer in the spotlight, but as someone who would help shape the future of Cybernet from behind the scenes. She spent the next few days reflecting on James's offer. There were so many unknowns, so many risks. She would be stepping into a world that she had left behind for a reason. The corporate world, with all its politics and pressure, was not an easy one to navigate. But what if this was her chance to do something meaningful? What if she could help James build something that would change the world for the better? In the quiet solitude of her apartment, Tasha paced back and forth, thinking about her future. She wasn't motivated by fame or money. She had that in her past career, but it never brought her peace. What she wanted now was something different, a chance to make a real impact on the world. Finally, after days of deliberation, Tasha made her decision. She picked up the phone and dialed James's number. "I'm in," she said, her voice steady but filled with anticipation. "I'll help you. But I'm doing this on my terms. No spotlight. Just the work." James's voice was filled with relief and excitement. "You won't regret this. I need someone like you. You've got the skills and the heart to change everything." As Tasha settled into her new role at Cybernet, things began to change quickly. Her unique perspective and skill set proved to be invaluable in shaping the future of the company. While James had always been focused on innovation and security, Tasha brought a new approach to the table, one that focused not only on the technical aspects but also on the human side of the business. Together, they worked on creating a more transparent and accessible system for the company's clients, focusing on cybersecurity measures that were not only effective but also ethical. They collaborated on initiatives that would benefit the wider world, and their partnership began to flourish. James realized that, in bringing Tasha into the fold, he hadn't just gained a skilled technician, he had gained someone who understood the value of human connection, who knew how to balance ambition with compassion. She taught him that success was not just about building an empire, it was about creating something that would stand the test of time, something that would leave a lasting impact on the world. As the months passed, the company began to thrive in ways it never had before. The systems were stronger, more secure, and more user-friendly. Cybernet became a leader not only in cybersecurity but also in social responsibility. And James, once focused solely on control and power, learned that true leadership came from trust, collaboration, and understanding. Tasha, on the other hand, found a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. She wasn't just helping James build a company, she was helping to build a legacy, one that would be remembered for its innovation, its integrity, and its heart. Together, James and Tasha had created something that would change the world, and, in doing so, they had changed each other's lives in ways neither could have imagined.